So my name is Nicolas Graf. I'm the director of the ESSEC EME Center of Excellence in Hospitality, Food and Travel, which is a fairly new initiative. Historically, as you will hear, for those of you going to the program presentation at 12, I think it's at 12. So you will have a let's say, more complete explanation of the program. But historically, EME was a joint venture between Cornell University and ESSEC Business School. It was founded in '81. The relationship with Cornell lasted for 20 years, which is more than the average marriage, in fact. So it was a long relationship. However, we divorced about 12 years ago. And since then, EME has remained the MBA program in hospitality management for the ESSEC group. And last year, we founded the Center of Excellence. The Center of Excellence are part of the new strategy of ESSEC, which is based on 3I projects, 3I standing for internationalization, implication, and innovation. And so we created the Center of Excellence, which includes the MBA in hospitality management, but will include as well other programs, a new master program in food business we're working on, and also a series of executive education programs that we deliver on our campus in La Défense at the CNIT. Welcome, have a seat. And in Singapore, we have another campus in Singapore. The official opening of that campus is planned for, I think, in about a month from now, I think, and I'm not sure, so maybe you shouldn't tape me on that. But anyway, so we think there's a bright future for hospitality, food and travel in general at the graduate level, and we're developing a number of new initiatives, and you will be aware of these initiatives as you're probably part of, now you've entered our Salesforce system, so you will receive emails from us explaining you our conferences, forums, and other events that we will be having in the next few months. Anyway, so that's a little bit it for me. I'm in charge of the program, of the EME program, and of other things as well. And I'm also teaching in the program. I'm teaching two things. I'm teaching strategy, and I'm teaching finance. So I have the two sides, strategy and finance. And today I decided to talk about the future of hospitality, the way I see it, although I don't see very far ahead, to be honest with you. I just have ideas about a few emerging trends shaping the hotel business in general, and some of these new trends are truly disruptive trends. What's the difference between disruptive things or evolutive things? What's the major difference? I will ask you questions today. And you will see I've been asked to repeat the questions as I'm the only one with a microphone. So for our video, I will have to repeat your question, not necessarily because I don't understand your question. So any idea what's the difference between an evolution and a disruption? Probably, yeah, the timing is probably shorter. It's more for disruption. So the timing and let's say how severe the impact can be on industries. Yes, disruption means they are significant. The way industries, sectors create value and the way value is being captured changes significantly. Today, so we will have an overview of the current situation of the hotel business, which could be already for some of you somehow new or to know about that industry. We will be talking about it a little bit, and then we'll get into more of the the future, what's possible, going in the future. So the first slide I have, you will think I'm bizarre, and I am probably a little bit bizarre. I'm Swiss, by the way, so French-speaking Swiss, originally trained as a chef, which ended up with a PhD in finance for some reason. So something in between happened, which was probably a disruption, to be honest with you. But anyway, so you will think that I'm a little strange in asking you some of these questions, but I think they're important questions. My first question to you is this one: why do species change? I thought about, showing you a picture of a dinosaur. What happened to dinosaurs? Yes, they went extinct. They're all dead, all of them. I haven't found one. What happened to them? Why did they die? They could not adapt. Well, it was, probably would have been very difficult for them to adapt to what happened to them. But anyway, yes. And this is the reason why species change is because they try to adapt to what? To what do they adapt? To changes. Okay, so the next question is, why does nature change? The same reason. To adapt, and probably also to survive. No? I live in Normandy. I have a big yard in my house, and as I see, my trees evolve over seasons, the reason why they change in different ways is simply to survive and to be capable the next season to actually renew themselves. So species and nature change to adapt and to survive. So the next two questions, because I clicked twice, the one is for corporations or industries, sectors. Why do they change? Well, the same reasons. The same reasons, to adapt and survive. And very often, I have the question of, why do we need to change? What is the true purpose? Is it changing to change, or is it changing really to adapt and survive? And in the business world, it's very difficult for people to change. And this is true for any kind of business. Last week, I was giving a talk to a company that is not at all a hotel company, not at all in the tourism sector. It's a logistic company. It's doing only shipping things on behalf of customers. And they have to change. Even in the logistic world, they have to change. Logistic is it's shipping goods from one place to another on behalf of customers. And even that sector needs to change. And these people in that room were all very intelligent people, except that they had a somehow natural resistance to change. And often it's because people don't understand the purpose of change. And the purpose is not changing for the sake of changing. The purpose is changing to adapt and survive in an environment that is evolving. What is changing, really? Here, I took that quote, 2010. I read from time to time the Wall Street Journal, and I came across that quote. Basically, the title of the it was an opinion paper in the Wall Street Journal, and the title of it was "Strategic Plans Lose Favor." And I was thinking, reading that on the Wall Street Journal, having to teach a strategic plan course the next day, I was just wondering whether I should, wake up the next day. What should I do? Why are strategic plans losing favor? And so I read this, and I came across that quote. The rate of change and the width and volatility is much wider and faster than what we would have assumed coming into this. Now, 2010 was somehow what we had hoped would be the end of the financial crisis, which was not really the end of the financial crisis. Was followed by various complications and problems. But it started in 2007 in the United States. The key, let's say, event was in late 2007 when the bank Lehman Brothers went bankrupt. And so that person, Mr. Fettig, was actually talking about what happened to them during that period. Okay? And so he says, the company realized it could no longer count on a reasonable set of assumptions. He adds, so we modeled very significant changes in scenarios in terms of strategic plans. Very significant changes. So at the time, I was reflecting on the hotel industry back in 2010, and I was thinking, what has changed so much in the hotel industry? So thinking about the recession, group bookings from groups declined significantly. There was lower occupancy rates in hotels. As a consequence, with the lower demands, hoteliers started to decrease prices. and overall rates went down, and so that was a normal, let's say, a deep crisis, but a normal crisis in the sense that we had seen that in the past, we'd seen that in 2001, we had seen that back in the 80s, we'd seen that back in the 70s, and I was wondering whether there was really something truly different. The rate of change and the width of volatility is much wider and faster. Is that something that had become, back in 2010, something that would shape business world and the hotel business, the width and the volatility of change? So I was wondering. So the next kind of, let's say, phase in my thought process was to look into things that were driving change. What was causing things to change in the world? And I looked at some mega trends. So these are a few sets of mega trends. I grouped them under three themes, major themes that you can see here. So demography and income and wealth related trends. We have other trends that are related to climate, energy, and resources, and we have other trends that are related to society and culture. Now, these trends are not new trends. They were new maybe 30, 40 years ago, but they're not new trends today. They're trends that have shaped the world and are continuing to shape the world. So I was reflecting on some of these trends. Let me take you through some of them, the ones that I think are the most, let's say, impactful for and significant for the hotel business. Let's talk about globalization of businesses, which is probably one of the most obvious megatrends that has shaped the world in which we're currently living and is continuing to shape the world in the future. So globalization of businesses. When you think about it, what does it mean for you? So if I look back at history, we went through multiple phases of trade agreements around the world. Truly trade agreements that have shaped a lot the phenomena of globalization, both in terms of trade of goods, but also the transportation and movement of people, with a few visa restrictions being lifted, quotas, tariffs, and other things being lifted on custom. So globalization of business has been originally driven by trade of goods, then followed by the actual travel of people and exchange of people and migration phenomena that we see here. If we think about the hotel business, how has the hotel business been affected by the globalization? Or by globalization, I should say. Maybe some of you are too young. But I remember, I'm probably older than what I look. But I remember when I was traveling back in the 80s, and I was traveling on, air travel was a luxury at the time. Air travel was true luxury. I was still flying Swissair, which has not adapted enough, obviously, or made a few mistakes. So Swissair is now called Swiss and belongs to Lufthansa. But Swissair was as Swiss citizens, were very proud of Swissair for many reasons. But I remember back in the 80s, it was a luxury. The first time I flew to the United States, for instance, from Geneva to, I think it was to New York, I could still smoke on board. Could still smoke on board. It was a true luxury, and you could do a lot of things you couldn't do today. There was no movie, though. I mean, there was maybe one movie with one of these big screen, kind of shaking over our head. But at least you could smoke. So at the time, airline travel was a luxury, and you could do a bunch of stuff on board that you can no longer do. Now today, flying to New York, is that considered as a luxury? Not really. Honestly speaking, airline travel has become a commodity, with a few exceptions. Some companies having been able to actually differentiate, Emirates being one of them, for instance. But other than that, it's a commodity. When you fly, I mean, you can fly for reasonable prices around the world. So globalization, that has been one of the impacts. Second impact is, at the time, and again, I tell you about my experience, in Switzerland, there was no international hotel brand in the 80s, none. None. The structure of the hotel industry in Switzerland was dominated by independent hotels that were run like, let's say, family businesses. On average, you could find maybe 15 rooms per unit on average, which is small, honestly speaking. Services and amenities were not very present. So the globalization of business has impacted the hotel business by allowing chains to expand internationally. And that really started in the 80s, globalization of business. Now, obviously, it continues. That trend continues, and hotel chains continue to expand in other territories, but it started really in the 80s. Now, if we look at other issues here, we can talk about connectivity and productivity, for instance, which has been a mega trend shaping our lives for the past 20 to 30 years. I will go through history of the evolution of the hotel business to show you the impact of these things. But today, what percentage of travel products are sold online? What is the percentage of travel products sold online? About? In some markets, probably up to 60%. Overall, I'd say probably more around 40%. It depends on the market, the region in the world, but yes, and it's increasing, the share of products sold online. Now, this is due to connectivity, obviously. Another issue, there was a very good report late last year, probably in December, November, December, in The Economist. The Economist is a weekly publication that I like for the reports they give, not necessarily for the political views that they hold. But anyway, there was a very good report on automations, robots, the robotization of the world. And it was pretty scary. Their forecast was to say that about 30% of the jobs that we know today that are currently carried by people would be automated by robots by 2050, 30%. Now, not sure, not sure what you make of it, but to me, that's a dramatic shift and significant problem for societies. But so that's one of the trends. So the hotel business is also facing issues on that due to that trend and these evolutions. The third one I'd like to talk about today is the trend on lifestyle transformation. Lifestyle transformation, how people actually live, the way they approach their lives and the way their lives is structured, how their friends, how they make friends, how they keep friends, how they have relations, what is their own relation to others in general. That has changed significantly, when you know that in the hotel, typically in the 80s, someone would spend most of its time in his room, when today, people spend most of their time in public space, except of sleeping time, I would say. So there has been a shift in the way people consume things because of that lifestyle transformation, which obviously has an impact on the way we need to build hotels. Okay, the way we allocate space to the various functions has to be adapted as well. So these are some of the mega trends that have shaped, and from the previous quote, if I go back on that quote, problem is not so much that these trends are impacting and changing our environment. It's the rate of change, how quickly these trends are actually impacting the environment. Globalization, it took 30 years before it really shook the entire industry. When we talk about connectivity today, it's taking only a few years to radically transform an industry. So the question will be, what will be the next mega change from these mega trends? Okay. Let's reflect a little bit on historical evolution. So this is just a brief overview of significant milestones in the development of hotels globally. So first one is the official. Now there are two hotels are competing for that official recognition as being the first commercial hotel. But the two are in Japan anyway. So I picked one just because I thought the name was very nice to pronounce. So I'll let you read. So it was the first hotel to be considered as a commercial hotel, which was built on purpose to actually host guests and sell lodging products. Okay, it was in 705, so pretty early. In the 80s, so we kind of jump here. We saw the international growth of hotel chains, as I mentioned, driven by globalization. We saw the Marriott, the Intercontinental, we saw the Accor Group, and all of these international chains actually expanding significantly internationally. And it really started in the 80s. As I mentioned, our program was created in 81. Then in the 90s, we started to see what we call a phenomena that was called or termed as brand proliferation. When the hotel chains, if you take Marriott, for instance, or Hilton, both had one or two brands, their mother brands, let's say, the Marriott hotels or the Hilton hotels. And that was pretty it for most of their history up until the 90s, when they started to create a bunch of other brands. And today, Marriott has probably something around 17 brands. And they keep creating new ones. And the new ones, as we will see, are increasingly targeting different segments that are more lifestyle orientated as opposed to price point orientated. In '93, we saw another significant evolution, which was the split of what we call the bricks and the brains. Although I'm not sure where the brains are in our industry, but the bricks, the property owners, and the brains, basically the brands and the operators. So the first milestone here was the separation of Marriott International and then Host Marriott, which was reorganized under legal entity status of a REIT, which was a real estate investment trust, which is a specific vehicle designed to avoid double taxation. It also exists in France and other countries. But that was the first time when hotels or hotel companies started to actually separate their expertise and recognize that there was two separate types of expertise in running hotels. One was about the property itself, the maintenance of the property, the acquisition of the property, the divestment from properties, etc., etc. And another set of expertise which was more related to running the day-to-day operations and selling hotel rooms. So that was the first split in '93, which then started a wave of asset-light strategies that we will be briefly talking about in a minute. '90s, we started to see some electronic or e-commerce or electronic-related companies emerge. We had Sabre, and Sabre, it's an interesting history. Sabre, if you're not familiar with the industry, Sabre was one of the first, or the first, let's say, electronic system enabling airlines to actually sell their seats and actually have their sales system coordinated and electronically around the world. Sabre was a division of American Airlines. Now Sabre at one point, the division of American Airlines had a market capitalization bigger than the one of American Airlines itself, so they spun off the division. And Sabre in 1990 launched the first revenue management system. So it was back in the 90s, okay? So for those of you who think revenue management is a new thing, well, wake up, it's the old thing. In '96, Sabre launched Travelocity. Again, Travelocity became a division of Sabre, and a bit later, Travelocity was valued more than Sabre itself, so they spun it off again. Travelocity, I'm not sure if the deal is totally done yet, but Travelocity, I think, is being sold to Expedia. Okay, Expedia is acquiring Travelocity today. So Travelocity was one of the first online travel agents. Microsoft, in the same time, Microsoft launched Expedia, which they spun off later on, although Expedia is not worth more than Microsoft. Okay, it's not the same case. '98, Priceline, another big name, was founded. So '98, when you think about it, '98, it's not so long ago in reality for a company that today is global. '99, Burj Al Arab, for those of you who know, the first, what they claim at least, 7-star hotel, although I think the architecture is not aged as well as I expected from the Burj Al Arab, but it was in '99. Then 2008, we have new names coming up, Review Pro and Airbnb being founded. Okay, Review Pro being totally different, being more offering services to hotel companies. about analyzing reviews that guests put online and providing other sorts of information, and Airbnb, which is well known today, being that company allowing you to exchange or to rent in the sharing economy, the way we talk about it. And then 2012, we have other names coming up, such as Duetto Research. How many of you have heard about that company? You've heard about it? It's actually a company that's making a lot of buzz around it, has raised significant money. It's based in the Silicon Valley in California. It's an interesting revenue management company that's heavily using what we call today big data and analytics, trying to actually come up with new ways to forecast demand and to better price hotel rooms. So 2012 and 2015, today. Although the website's not working, I've checked. The website is still not working, but Amazon Travel is set to launch. Have you heard about that, Amazon Travel? So Amazon, you're all familiar with Amazon. Amazon is set to launch a travel website where basically you will be able to buy on Amazon travel products, including hotel rooms. So you could imagine Amazon, for instance, where you decide today to actually travel to, I don't know, London, and you want to go to London, and at the same time you want to buy something from Amazon. You can have it delivered, so you can buy your hotel room on Amazon, probably at one point your airline ticket or your train ticket, and then you can buy a book and have it delivered in your hotel room in London by Amazon, so somehow bundling various products. And this is today, so this is today. So what we see from just looking at this evolution, and it's not a biased evolution, between this, the first hotel, in 1980, not much had changed. Not much had changed in running a hotel. The check-in, check-out process was done essentially the same way. The accounting, the ledger accounting, and all of these kind of processes were essentially done the same way. The way a housekeeper would clean a room was done essentially the same way. Not much had changed. Now, from the 80s, what we see is that there have been significant changes, and if you look at that, the changes seem to be coming more frequently. So it's the pace of change that has increased tremendously here. So today, if we look at the way, what we consider as being the hotel industry today, although I'm skeptical about being able to define an industry in today's world. But anyway, let's try to have a look at this somehow value chain, how the participants in the creation and capture of value in this industry. So we have 4 types of actors. Some companies can be involved in 2 parts of this chain or 3 parts of this chain, but it's increasingly rare to see companies being involved with everything. But we have 4 sets of activities. We have the 2 ones that we generally are more familiar with, which are the brands, so all of the big brands that you can think of. And you have the other one, which is the operator, the one that is actually running the show in the hotel. The GMs, the heads of departments, et cetera, they're the operators. And then we have the other ones that we are still, these ones we're somehow familiar with because we know some of them, the distributors, the ones that are actually distributing, selling, if you want, the products, and we know them as well. And then we have the other ones that generally we don't know much, which are the property owners. But this is today the way this sector is being structured, the way we look into it. Now, if we look at the names of these, tell me which company, with the exception of the Accor Group, the Accor Group being slightly different, but forget about them for the moment, which company is the largest operator of hotels? Marriott, Starwood, Intercontinental. Who said Intercontinental? You'd better make a very good GMAT score if you want to be even considered for interview. No, that's a joke, okay? It's a joke. No, it's, yes, Interstate. You said it. So Interstate is today the company that is managing the most hotel rooms, operating. But you don't see an Interstate hotel. You don't. Interstate is a company that has specialized in the operation of hotels. not in the branding of the hotels, not in the actual distribution of hotel, not in the ownership of property, but really truly in the operation of hotels. Interstate is mostly active in the United States, although they have joint venture in India and they are increasingly looking after Europe. But they're operators, very strong in hotel operation. And the way they function is they, I double click, that's a. The way they work is they very often work for companies like the Blackstone Group. Or we can think of other sorts of private equity, real estate investment trusts, any kind of other institutional investors that own hotels, the property themselves, the building, the real estate, okay? And the way they work with this is either they work with property owners through a normal lease agreement, although that's slowly but surely being phased out, but generally through management agreements. So they manage the hotel on behalf of the property owner in exchange for fees that are paid to them, okay? And then the way, because Interstate is not always known, in fact it's not known, the way it works very often is that Interstate or the property owner, depending on the actual legal structure of that business, has a franchise agreement with one of the big names, such as Intercontinental Hotel Group. So you could typically see a Holiday Inn being managed, operated by Interstate and being owned by the Blackstone Group, okay? So various sets of relationships. And then finally, you could have Priceline actually selling the hotel rooms for these other entities, okay? So this model is being adopted throughout the world, from the United States, United Kingdom, going through Europe and being adopted in India and being adopted in China very quickly. So it seems that this is the dominant model for the structure of the industry today. My guess is this is not going to last long. So looking into this evolution, if we think. So the first major evolution was globalization, standardization of a few brands that all went global. The Hilton, Marriott, et cetera, went through this. And we saw the beginning of disintegration. What I call disintegration is basically that split between operators who started to specialize, the Interstate, the brand who started to specialize, the Intercontinental, et cetera, and also the ownership side that started to actually specialize. The next wave came with lifestyle trends that I talked about a few minutes ago, where we started to see a proliferation of brand to respond to that lifestyle change. And the fact that people started to be very, let's say, different in the way they behaved, and we could not really segment them in very clear-cut market segment. There was a time you could clearly segment people based upon their income level, very simply. And you would say then, you started to talk about, we have an economy brand. Okay, fine, what's an economy brand? It's a brand that falls within a certain price point. And then we have a mid-scale brand, which are brands that fall between two different price points, and then et cetera, et cetera. Today, as we see, people are no longer willing to be, let's say, talked to or viewed as segments that are price sensitive only. They are lifestyle sensitive. They are lifestyle sensitive. We see certain brands like Moxie. Have you heard about Moxie? Moxie is Marriott's brands that they created together with IKEA, which is supposed to be a brand that is targeting people who have a certain way of living that is eco-conscious in different way. So essentially, it's targeting not people by price, it's targeting people by certain types of behavior and willingness to live in a certain way.
The agreement between subject. There's a word.
What, I had something else. No, this is it. Then the third kind of major change that we have seen, I'll raise my voice, is essentially connectivity and internet, which is no longer new today here. And we talked about disruption of sales channels. So we saw the OTAs started in 2000, early 2000, and then expanded. And at the time, hoteliers simply did not realize the importance the internet would take, and thus failed to commit sufficient resources to the development of their own channels. Some of they did to some extent, but not let's say, the size of investments that they would have needed. So there was a true disruption on how hotel rooms were sold. So here, the emergence of reviews, TripAdvisors, and other sorts of reviews, and essentially an increased transparency of the whole business for customers to compare brands, to choose, and also a disruption in terms of, for instance, the star systems. Okay, the entire star system is becoming increasingly less relevant due to these kind of reviews and to the fact that people are less also price point sensitive. They're price sensitive, but not price point sensitive, which is a different story. So now the question is, what is the next emerging disruption? What is the next disruptive move? So in our program, I need to do a little marketing now to try to get you back after our technical problems. Our program, we have 4 concentrations, 4 specializations. So it's a general MBA if you want, but we've included 4 types of expertise. And the reason is because of the current shape of that sector. Remember, operators, brands, distributors, and owners. Okay, 4 major groups. So we have one specialization in real estate development and finance, specific to the hotel business, where we train students about asset management, feasibility studies, valuation, investment analysis, property development, etc., etc. So that's one of the specializations we have. We have another one which is on e-commerce and distribution, where we train people about the distribution landscape, how these things function, social media, managing reviews, etc., etc. So that's another specialization we have. Then we have another one in branding, which is mostly geared towards luxury branding, but it also includes certain other brands. So we have one on the branding side. And then we have another one which is more entrepreneurial trend, which is more for people who want to start up their own business, but also that somehow is connected to the operational side of things. So we have covered these kind of 4 things. And currently we're thinking about new ones because of that question, which I'm asking myself on a regular basis. What is the next one? What do we need to do next to try to be adaptive to our new environment? To me, there is one word that somehow should become the keyword is already the keyword, to be honest. I haven't invented that word. I'm using it because I think it's a sexy word. So it's always good to have nice words to put in a presentation. But it's a word that you will hear increasingly about, and this is it. Now, do you know what this means? Ubiquity. The ability to be everywhere at the same time. So what that means, ubiquity, is essentially what we start to see with systems, people, products and services being available and connected with each other, available to everyone, everywhere, and at the same time. It's enabled by the internet. It's enabled by mobile technology. It's enabled by technology in general. But today we see that there is a ubiquitous, that's tough to pronounce, world. Let's have a look. We have, in this world, we have to look into the way people will think about buying hotel and travel products in a different way. If you think about the entire process of how this is done, the way you travel, the way you buy some of this product, the first thing is you think about traveling, you think about going somewhere for any kind of reason. It's the thinking process. The second step is you evaluate the various alternatives that you have. Oh, I want to go to London, or no, I want to go to, I don't know, Brussels, or you think, then you evaluate. Next stage is you compare. Next stage, you select, you book, you buy, you experience, then you review, and you do, again, the thinking process. That has been the regular way of looking into it. In the past, we used to do the thinking just by looking at books. We used to evaluate by going to normal travel agents. We used to compare by what they were telling us, the travel agents. We were selecting, basically, we were pushed to select something as opposed to something else. We were booking through normal travel agents, etc., and we were not really reviewing anything. Today, we're doing that on different websites, but most of it is done online today. We're thinking online, because we're very often online, either on a mobile device or any kind of other device. We're kind of thinking about things by, okay, hey, I see a new ad about New York, or I see new events, there's a concert there are different things. So we think on different channels, but it's generally online. The next stage is we evaluate online. We go and we search for information online. Then we compare. Where do we go to compare? We go Kayak, Trivago, Google, and we compare. Then we select. When we select, we can select either to actually select a channel. We actually want to book through Expedia, or we book on the hotel.com website. Then we actually do the booking online. Then we experience the whole thing, obviously not online, unless you're really strange, but that might come at some stage. And then we review online. But we do that on various channels, Now, from The Economist in 2012. It's the actual new kind of world of the major companies. And I like that map because I think it's a funny map. You have a map here that talks about the fortress Facebook, then Amazonia for Amazon here, then you have the empire of Microsoft here, the dark side of the business. The Appalachia for the mountains in the US. You have Google Earth here, so a sea of commerce, sea of content, and the dark offline for those that are still lost in that domain. These are the companies that are dominating this space today, and you have few new ones that are coming in. But at the moment, we do a lot of stuff. You could add a few others, the ones that I mentioned, Priceline, Expedia, TripAdvisor. You could add a few of these. The question is, how will this be managed? Will it continue to be managed the way it is managed today in a world that's full of interconnectedness, that word ubiquity? Will companies be able to do that? How will these things be integrated? That's, to me, the next question. Today, they're not so much integrated. Now, yes, you can book certain things online, but today you cannot really do all of these things in a single app. You have various applications or websites that are each doing a little bit of that cycle. To me, the next evolution and that disruption will be that there will be one that will actually concentrate all of these kind of features in a way or another. And the question is which one? So what we'll see? We'll see still the same kind of things that we had in the past in that hotel business. We'll see property owners. You will still need people able to finance and fund the property, the real estate. Then you will still have operators, people who are good at actually running the hotel, although there might be more, let's say, automation in that side in the coming years. You will still have some brands. And I added a /themes, because I'm not sure brands will actually be the same in the future the way they are today. Today, a brand is about some kind of let's say, experience-related dimensions that they want to express to their customers. If we think about a brand like the Moxie brand that I mentioned before, the Moxie brand is supposed to be a place or give a promise about being somehow eco-friendly, sustainable in the way it's been designed, and provide that kind of experience to the customer. Will we continue to see brands, or will we see more themes? Brands are somehow getting less and less related to the hard, standards. They're becoming increasingly experience-oriented, and so they will become at one point themes, like in a theme park. Okay, maybe that's what we'll see. We'll see market specialists that will come on top of that, let's say, group. Who will be the one who will be the best capable of selling Paris as a destination? Will it be a company like a hotel group? Will it be the city of Paris? Or will it be another sort of company? Destinations will be key in the way you will be capable of packaging the whole experience. And so you will see the emergence of market specialists, which will be geographically, let's say, related. Then we'll see data experts, the ones that are able to manage all of this data throughout that entire ecosystem. And then finally, we'll see the ecosystem itself. So someone that is able to define and develop that kind of an ecosystem. We're talking about ecosystem in the sense that everything should be working seamlessly within one ecosystem. And it's not functioning this way today. Now, you have some, this is the way I want to represent it, connected world. So we have different elements. We have the destination, the selection. How do we do that? That will be within a certain ecosystem at one point. How do we then, you see, you have examples here. This is which website? Kayak. This is Kayak, where they already somehow kind of help you select your destination. They're trying to position themselves in that domain. But you don't only have Kayak, you have also Google, you also have Amazon now getting into it. And the question is, who will actually dominate that ecosystem in selling the destination? Then within the destination, you will have different types of product. Hotel rooms being sold, yes. But then you will also have shopping experience being sold, museums, and any kind of travel-related products. And they will all be packaged within that kind of an ecosystem. And restaurants all together. And so to me, the next evolution is, instead of seeing a disintegration, what we'll see is that that disintegrated industry will be somehow reintegrated within an ecosystem. And there will be new jobs for people who want a new expertise needed for people to create and maintain such an ecosystem. One of the key questions that I'm wondering, because that would significantly change the face of that ecosystem, is the way this ecosystem will be structured. Will it be an ecosystem that is considered, these are networks, by the way. We talk a lot about networks, so it functions in engineering. They also work on networks. You can think about phone operator, you know, or the way data is transmitted and so forth and so forth. Is it a centralized network, where basically everything has to go through one point before it can be exchanged to another one? And if that's the case, it means that there will be one app dominating everything, that will be connecting everything else. If that's the case, you'd better work for that company, not for the other ones. Or you may have one that is more decentralized. What we currently have is somehow a decentralized network today. You have a few that are somehow aggregating different features. But then if you want to buy the whole experience, you need to go to more point of entrance into that ecosystem. I don't think this one will survive for too long. I think there will be a move. Or you can have one that becomes fully distributed, in a sense that there will be a very nice company that will simply organize the ecosystem in such a way that everybody still has its own place. It is not dominated by one entity, but it is still functioning in a very integrated way. Now, this is the ideal situation, collaborative type of ecosystem, so a lot of collaboration, and this is the one that would be then the one dominated by one or a few single entities. My take, it's probably going to go that way. I feel it's going to go that way. And the reason is, for that to function, everybody would have to be totally aligned in terms of how things should function. And I don't think people are totally aligned. The reason I think this is the kind of things we will see in the future, where you will have one or a few big companies dominating that ecosystem, and then a few smaller companies actually being service providers within the ecosystem, is because this evolution requires significant amount of money. And I compared the amount of money that different types of companies spend online, for instance, in their infrastructure to make these kinds of things function. I'll give you one example. I think if I rehearsed correctly, this is from Accor. I told you, forget Accor for a moment, now we come back to that company. They announced late last year during their digital day in London. It was a funny, you can watch the webcast, by the way, online. the CEO of Accor, Sébastien Bazin, who's a financier. He's a finance guy. Comes from Colony Capital. He's a finance guy. So generally, he's dressed just like I am today, basically just a tie and a suit, dark suit if possible. Okay. And on that day, he came and had no socks, no shoes, no tie, and he said, well, I thought that's the way gigs, basically techie people were dressed. So it was kind of funny. But anyway, they make big announcement here during that presentation where they started to talk about trying to start creating such an ecosystem for the group Accor. So trying themselves, trying to actually be the one that would actually incorporate all of these services. Now, they're still very far from it. And I don't think they've pushed the logic sufficiently far today. The problem is I don't think they will be capable of doing it. Not because they're not smart, not because they don't have the right people, simply because they don't have enough money. They don't have enough money. Accor Group is what? There's an annual turnover of, what, 11 billion euros? And yet they decided to invest 230 million over the next 3 years. 230 million over the next three years. Half of it would come from operating expenses, OPEX, and the other half only would come from capital expenditure. So about 120 million in capital expenditure. At the same time, Amazon will spend every year 500 million on the same thing. So for 3 years, that's $1.5 billion when Accor would have spent, really, in true capex, only 120 million. When you think about others, take Priceline is spending close to $1 billion in online advertising a year. Okay, so it's a matter of size. So it's on the way. It's an emerging strategy where they talk about one single app gathering all Accor services before, during, and after the stay, booking platform for Accor restaurants. I think they will need to incorporate, who wants, I mean, have you stayed at the Accor property? Okay, let's talk about Ibis. Ibis Red, you know, the classic one. Who wants to book a room at the Ibis restaurant? It's a good question, no? In advance. Oh, Valentine's Day is coming, my dear. I take you to the Ibis restaurant. They will need to package other things around, clearly. They will need to have this collaboration, and I don't think they will have sufficient money to actually do the same thing that others will be able to do. Here is another example. Here, this is Google. Google also has deep pockets, much deeper than many hotel chains. Now they start selling destinations. Here, they don't sell directly; they guide you. Same for hotels. They start to guide you. This is for destinations. In fact, they actually rank the popularity of destinations, and they tell you how much it would cost you to actually buy a ticket from all of the airlines that are flying there. And they also give you detailed information about likelihood of late arrival, of flights being delayed, etc. They aggregate all of that information. And if you want, you can actually find hotels with the same kind of aggregated information. And if you want, you can have the same information about restaurants, about museums. So they have that kind of information already. They're starting to package it in a way that you start to see that ecosystem emerge. And at one point, I think when they've covered all of that ecosystem, maybe they will start to sell. In other words, instead of giving that out for free, as they do now, taking a fee of it. And that could be the future of that hotel sector and travel sector. Now, when you think about it, just right on time, which is rare, I would like to share a few takeaways or keywords, things that I think will define tomorrow. There is a question that remains. Is it a winner-take-all future? Like there will be one giant dominating the ecosystem, which I think is more likely to happen? Or will it be more of a collaborative network of people? I don't think it's going to work that way. Second one is size matters. Yes. But agglomeration too. For those interested in that discussion, I wrote a piece on the Hotel Yearbook, which is available online. It's called No, I don't think it's called Size Matters. That was another one. Bigger, but bigger, better. I think I titled that article that talks about that kind of thing here. Yes, size matters. You need to be big to have the money to actually invest in this kind of technology and development. But agglomeration matters. What I mean by agglomeration is that the density of what companies are offering, of their network, will be important to cover markets extremely well. You remember the market specialist, kind of new domain of becoming a market specialist, will be important. In the sense that if you can be in a destination, the one that creates an ecosystem at that destination level, then it will be already pretty good. So they will need to densify what they do. If I was, for instance, Accor, I would invest significantly more in Paris to try to control more of the Parisian markets. They already control a fair amount, but if they could cover the whole thing, then they would have enough market power, let's say, to actually create their ecosystem for Paris, for instance. So it will be about that kind of phenomena as well. Other ones will be experiential and digital. So experiential in the sense that people will be willing to experience a seamless journey from the time they think about the journey to the time they review their experience. And they want that to be seamless. And some technologies are going that way. I'm taking another example here. Few companies, Starwood, Hilton, Accor, started to actually create for business travelers systems that enable you as a business traveler to actually buy various things during your journey at the hotel, but also outside of the hotel, and have all of the bills, the invoices, being scanned by an application that is an application provided by the hotel company, and that all of your invoices at the end of your trips, you can click a button and it gives you the whole, let's say, how do you say that? Note de frais, the expenses, your expenses, right? But all of the list of your expenses summarized, explained, and justified so that you just need one click, send it to your accounting department, and they reimburse you. So seamless journey, and that is going to continue to happen. It's experiential and digital. The notion of that ecosystem, where people want to be able to buy all of these things in a seamless way. And finally, a blurry boundaries. Start to see boundaries between sectors. What we used to call the hotel business becomes more difficult to define. Is Amazon part of the hotel business? Would you consider Amazon as a hotel company? Well, I suspect that some of our graduates in the coming years will actually go and work for Amazon. I suspect that. Google, I suspect they will start to work for Google. We already have a few, but. So the boundaries between sectors becomes very blurry, very blurry. So that's something that will also define that future. And finally, expert agents. Within that whole ecosystem, everybody will need to become an expert. The role for generalists is slowly fading out. People who have simply a general notion about multiple things will become less and less employable in the future. People will need to become experts in one of these fields. And the challenge will be to remain expert in a field that remains relevant. So being able to actually shift from being an expert in, say, the investment side or the real estate side to being able to become an expert in another field at a later stage in your career. So that these are the few keywords that I would like you to keep. Now, to summarize, well, not to summarize, to conclude. I think I've summarized already, so I don't want to summarize my summary. But to conclude, the hotel industry has changed. It's today highly disintegrated in terms of its value chain. You have lots of various companies that are all somehow expert in a domain, and the relationships today are managed by contracts. And there is almost no seamless integration for consumers. That seamless integration will come, and it will come through an ecosystem that I think will be dominated by a few big companies. What it will change is this for companies. At the moment, our program, which will be presented in about 25 minutes, our program covers the current situation, but I think we also start to cover that next generation for the ecosystem. And what I'd like to say is we try to make sure that our students are capable of not only being an expert as they graduate, but also we're trying, I'm not saying we always succeed, we often succeed, but we're trying to make sure that our graduates are able to continue to learn themselves, to remain relevant in a world where the expertise changes, the relevant expertise change. So I want to thank you very much for your attention. And it works again. Thank you very much for your attention. So any question? Thank you. Thank you.
How do you consider the competition? Because in this kind of system, there is one or a few big giants, but we need some kind of competition in order to innovate and to improve our products and services. So how do you consider competition?
How do I consider competition in that kind of an ecosystem? I think the fact that there is an ecosystem doesn't prevent competition to occur within the ecosystem. You can think about consulting firms, for instance. Consulting firms, you go in for those of you interested in that career, in consulting firms, very often there's the people working, the consultants, are not managed through a normal hierarchy. They are working under some kind of a competitive market. So for instance, when they have someone who goes to Booz, for instance, or some of these consulting companies, and they ask for, okay, we have a mission, consulting mission for you. So they send out the mission, and then internally they send out that mission and says, okay, make a proposal. You make a proposal. So each consultant has to somehow compete against other consultants of the same company to actually win the mission. So in a way, in that ecosystem, I think it could work exactly the same way. So in other words, within the ecosystem, people will have to compete to be the best, to offer the best proposition. Because it will not be an integrated firm. It will be one ecosystem dominated by a few ones, but then the rest of the ecosystem will be somehow managed by other companies. The problem is the ecosystem will probably be able to capture more value than they should. But competition will continue.
What about the digitalization in the client experience in the future, the next steps?
Digitalization for the client experience, well, I think the experience of the whole, first of all, the whole, let's say, thinking to review process is already a good added value in terms of digitalization of customer experience. Now, in rooms, for instance, I mean, there are a bunch of new technology, but I don't see the evolution of in-room technology or in-hotel technology be what will be disruptive. I see that as more of an incremental improvement of air quality, for instance. So we have people working on improving air quality in rooms, of improving the what we call the service scape, which is basically the service scape touches on all of the senses that people have. Colors, light, smell, etc., touch. And you have technology that will be improving that. For instance, in travel, if you take the A380, the Airbus, the big one, they did a lot of work in improving the interior lighting system, so that when you fly with an A380, the lighting is programmed to actually help you cope with jet lag. So in the sense that it adapts itself to help your biological clock adjust to the jet lag, in fact, to be less jet lagged when you arrive. To me, we will see more of these kinds of improvements. But I don't think these will be necessarily as disruptive as the one that will come from managing the ecosystem.
Which company is the most likely to be able to create this ecosystem to start like?
So many things. Pick one of these. And a few similar ones.
So these are not actually big hotel chains, but we have to think from a different industry point of view. I have a
question regarding the individualization of experiences, because you kind of mentioned it as one of the potential disruptors, that people don't just want to go to a box somewhere, they choose things like Airbnb to really have that unique experience. And in your ecosystem, I didn't see the consumer there anywhere mentioned as a part of the decision-making process.
Oh, but yes. The fact that system, that ecosystem will be put in place will allow almost complete personalization, in a sense that today, for instance, we are working within, I don't want to get into that, but within that center of excellence that I briefly introduced earlier, we have something that we call Chief. I know it sounds good. I'm happy with the name. It's a collaborative hub for innovation, education, and foresight, which basically brings a lot of external companies on campus to talk to students, to test their products, to actually look into new innovation. And we have, for instance, a company that's called Menu Online, for instance, that provides, so it could very well be integrated into that ecosystem. You're traveling to China, you go to a restaurant that you've booked through the ecosystem, and you go there and the menu is in Chinese. How many of you speak Chinese fluently and read Chinese fluently? Yes. Yeah, but you won't be there with us. Okay. I could have said German. Do you speak German? No. Okay, so think about yourself having a menu in German. You know, Bratwurst, meat, I don't know. I don't speak German. But anyway, so what they have is they have on their application, you flash a code and it automatically translates the entire menu into your language, for instance. So in that ecosystem, that will be made available. And this is personalization in the sense that you can actually see the things that are not designed for you, but you can make it designed for yourself, like the menu in your own language. Other thing is, if you want, increasingly you want to take the Amazon example. Amazon example, okay, I want to go to New York, and at the same time I want to buy something that's really from New York, and I want it to be delivered in my room. This is personalization. Your room would be personalized in a way by the products that you can add to your travel experience. So there is, to me, there will be a fair amount of personalization there. Now, in terms of the product, will Airbnb be a part of it? Probably. Will Uber be part of it in terms of that whole package? Why not? So there will be...
so I could say select a room with green curtains facing, I don't know, Statue of Liberty and have...
Well, you can already do that.
No, but in terms of the personalization
Probably. If for some of the agents, you see, in that ecosystem, these will not be part of, they will not be owned by Google. Okay, the hotel will not be owned by Google. There will be individual agents, and so they will each have to compete, as you were saying, in terms of their product offering within that bigger ecosystem. So those who can offer that level of customization, okay, but you can already do that to some extent, like more pillows, some pillows without certain things, allergy-free, etc., certain types of curtains and so forth. You can already do that to some extent, but that level of customization will be coming from competition within the ecosystem. And I think as that ecosystem will provide even more transparency for the consumer, people or companies will have all of the incentives to actually customize. The question is, will they be capable financially to support that level of customization? But it's already there. Yes?
Go back to personalization. Will be more accessible to most of people, or it will still keep in the luxury brand? I mean, you were talking about robotization, so there are some things that we can also already program, but all the things that we cannot program, like the mood of the guest and how to answer to it. That's the next level of personalization.
Well, there are two answers to your question. I think within the ecosystem, you may still have some highly distinctive, luxurious companies that can exist and survive outside of the ecosystem, and they may create their own, potentially. We know that there is that increasing gap between those that are super rich and those that are not. I mean, there was that report about 2 weeks ago saying that half of the world wealth was in the hands of 1% of the world population, would be in the next year. So, but these, yes, they will concentrate a lot of wealth, and they will they spend it in the ecosystem? Probably. Outside as well? Probably as well. So some super luxury, let's say, companies and so forth may still survive outside because they're sufficiently differentiated and sufficiently exclusive so that they don't have to be in the ecosystem, and they may want to stay outside, in fact. But for the bigger part, the rest will be inside. And in terms of the robotization, I think if you probably have robots that are better capable of assessing the mood of someone than humans by looking at various signals. So I think at one point even that will be better done by some. What will not be done this way is if you expect, when you will expect errors, then you will continue to use human. And sometimes people expect errors to be surprised, let's say. With the robots, you may be less surprised. But in terms of being able to identify the mood of someone, I think robots would be better at doing that than human at one point. Not today. But again, I think you need to think about the new value-adding jobs that exist there. If today, when you think a check-in, check-out process where people continue to watch their computer screen without watching the guest, what's the added value of a human doing that? And even for the person doing it itself, what's the value of doing it? When in fact you could have a check-in, check-out process done before and having a discussion with the guest as opposed to a check-in, check-out process, which would be much more richer as an experience for both the employee and the guest, I think. Okay, hey, did you know that, and different things like this, as opposed to doing the check-in, okay, mister, okay, how do you spell your name? There's very little value into this, and there would be much more value into welcoming people warmly, etc., etc. Other questions? Yes?
So my question is just following the previous question. That so you mean that the ecosystem, the new technology will just to improve the customer service, the customer experience. But do you think that the new technology or the apps or the digital thing that will really replace the customer service, the interaction between people to people?
No, it will not replace entirely the interaction between people. It will change it. Will it require? Look at it. If you take the jobs in a hotel today, most hotels, with a few exceptions, how much time do employees really spend interacting with people? You see, I'm a little tired of the old hotel schools telling people and kids that, oh, it's a people industry. No, it's a building industry. It's an asset-heavy industry. It's an industry where you have very strict hierarchies and so forth and so forth. It's not really a people industry, to be honest with you. It should be maybe more. And I think technology could enable that to be really a people industry. Today, how much interaction do you spend with in a hotel? True interaction. It's tiny. Housekeepers, they avoid interaction. Now, when you think technology in the restaurant business today, we have a lot of new initiatives, for instance, of taking orders in a different way so that it pushes for more interaction. It pushes for more interaction with the guests. Removing a lot of the, you see, when you have a restaurant, in the past, what you used to do is you take the order from the person, and you go and you do a lot of things in the back office. You input it in your point of sales. Then you go and make sure that the chef has received the right order, etc., etc. That can be all automated so that people in the restaurant spend more time with the guests. So to me, it will enhance customer service and could finally become a people industry. sorry to tell you what I think. Any other question? Yes?
You said that we needed more and more experts, but you need also to have people who think global, who are able to manage, to have the strategies or to have the idea for the future. How do you reconcile that?
Yes, and again, I will be a bit rough. I remember when I did a benchmark analysis of lots of other hotel programs. My benchmark analysis, I realized that every hotel program in the world was saying that they would actually train the leaders of tomorrow. And I said, shit, who's going to train the followers of tomorrow? If everybody's training the leaders, then who's going to be the follower? So I think not everybody will be a leader, and not everybody is designed to be a leader. So there will be people needed to be generalists and to have that strategic vision, but there will be only few. In all of the companies within the ecosystem, but there will be only few, where most of the job will be at the expert level. If you want, I can draw that here. That's not new technology, by the way. If you think it's the industry, you can think of it as being organized like this historically, where you have a few at the top of corporations, a few senior vice president or whomever, a few people, managers and so forth, and a lot of workers. The way it's changing, it's still going to be like this, maybe more a shape like this. You see, it's becoming oriental in a shape. Or it could be a Christmas something. Anyway, you still will have only a few there that will need that very strategic vision and so forth and so forth. But you will need fewer of these general managers, and you will need more of these experts. And you probably will need fewer general managers because you will need fewer workers there. So these will be the ones who will become the agents working on market specialists, data experts, etc., etc. But yes, you will still need some of these people here in every company that will need to have the strategic vision, yes. That's why we no longer use it, the board. Get all ugly. Any other question? Thank you very much.